FBI officials told agents not to investigate the Hunter Biden laptop ahead of the 2020 election. This is per a whistleblower. So, but doesn't make sense. So what we had recently come out, we had the information that Mark Zuckerberg told to Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan podcast. He said, yeah, the FBI contacted us, and since they're a legit organization, they told us that there could be stories coming up that look a lot like Russian disinformation. They didn't specifically name the Hunter Biden laptop story, but they just said, yeah, stuff might be coming up in it. It looks like Russian disinfo. And so, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all these other entities just went, okay, well, this fits that pattern. This can't be legit. Let's just quash this story. And what they did is they didn't really allow the link to the story to be pushed out. Some of the entities didn't allow the link to basically be pushed out at all. Other people, they just limited the exposure it had. Yeah, it was basically, the story was put on hold. So when I released a couple of podcasts on this exact topic, because it was a hot topic, what happened is my content wasn't monetized. They said it wasn't suitable for advertisers, and it wasn't pushed out. So it just got no exposure. So they didn't outright censor it, but it wasn't allowed to get out there the way that it should have. And to me, on a large scale basis between Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all these other entities, that story should have been out there. And yet, just this long, continuous, number of things that point to the fact that, yeah, FBI had this laptop a long time ago. They had it in their, it's all over the news, right? They had it in December of 2019. So when the elections rolled around on 2020, November of 2020, they had almost a year to look at it, and they didn't investigate it on purpose. And that's what this whistleblower is saying. Let's jump on into it. Let's see what this whistleblower says. A whistleblower claims FBI officials instructed agents not to investigate Hunter Biden's laptop ahead of the 2020 presidential election, saying that the Bureau was not going to change the outcome of the election again. This is according to a letter that Senator Ron Johnson sent. He sent it to the Justice Department inspector, Michael Horowitz, last Tuesday. So these new allegations provide even more evidence of FBI corruption and renew calls for you to take immediate steps to investigate the FBI's actions regarding the laptop. We've just had this whole narrative swirling around this, right? To me, it's just so wildly obvious. You've got potential president's son on some wild drug benders doing some crazy stuff, and he left a trail of information that doesn't look good. So the FBI was accused of bringing up the emails on Hillary Clinton's server. She had the server. She didn't have the server. She had her own private server at home. I didn't really know. And the FBI ran that story right before the election. And some people want to claim, well, that's why Trump won. To me, that doesn't make sense. That isn't a legit claim. All right. So she had a private email. Who knows what she's got there? But this story here with the Biden laptop, Hunter Biden just doing crazy stuff, lining up, what was it? Candy on his wiener. Just taking pictures of it. The guy's cracked out of his head, literally cracked out of his head. Yeah, pictures of him with the crack pipe hanging out of his mouth. He's in bed, just passed out. The guy was on a bender. He's on a serious drug bender. This is nothing new. But unfortunately, during those times, he left a little laptop, and maybe more than one laptop that, was found by the owner of the computer store is going through the laptop going, oh, geez, this is some stuff here. And he turned it over, and eventually it got to, it got into the right hands, and people are like, holy cow, what's the dealio here? And then the FBI kind of steps in, and who knows what they did? Who knows what happens? But then what we had like 50 or 100, I can't remember, it's probably in this article, former intelligence officers say, oh, that looks a lot like Russian disinformation. That sounds a lot like Russian disinformation. And by that point, the FBI had already had a full year to investigate the laptop, but they weren't going to because they didn't want to be, they didn't want to have the threat of the second election on their backs as having gone sideways because of something that they investigated. So Johnson writes that individuals with knowledge of the FBI's apparent corruption told his office that FBI officials intentionally undermined efforts to investigate President Biden's son. Now, did they? Well, from the outlook, the optics are not good because this laptop's been kicking around for a long time. Is it real? Well, now we've confirmed that a lot of the emails are real. It's been confirmed by New York Times and Washington Post. Some of the real early critics, that's Russian disinfo. Can't trust any of it. To, in the back end of the newspaper, well, looks like the laptop was legit. And that's because it was after the election. The harm had already been done. That story just got quashed. And I think a lot of people agree that had that story been out there, this election would have been way, way different. After the FBI obtained the Hunter Biden laptop from the Wilmington, Delaware computer shop, these whistleblowers stated that the local FBI leadership told employees, you will not look at that Hunter Biden laptop, and that the FBI is not going to change the outcome of the election again. All right. If you had to come up with reasons why entities would do something, the fact that they don't want to be blamed again for throwing an election, hey, we're just going to put this on ice. We don't know. We're not going to be able to say at the time of the election whether it's legit or not. We'll just say, hey, we're looking into it, something along those lines. And that's exactly what they did. But this storyline makes sense. We're not going to investigate it until after. Oh, yeah, it's real. And by then, the damage has already been done, which was the story wasn't pushed out at all. In fact, it was basically just quashed, never really allowed to get released. The whistleblower claims that the FBI did not start the review of the contents of the younger Biden's laptop until after the 2020 election. Almost a full year, and probably at least a full year after they had the laptop. They just sat on it, which Johnson notes was potentially a year after the FBI obtained the laptop in December 19. Johnson concludes his letter by calling on Horowitz to investigate the FBI's response. Well, there's got to be some timestamps on the FBI's investigation, right? Or does there? We don't really know, do we? We don't really know what the deal is with all this. We're just kind of taking guesses. But as far as a timeline goes, we know the FBI had this in November 2019. Okay, between there and the election, a lot of information could have come out. But instead, what happened is, well, that's Russian disinfo. Right, because the Russian disinfo was so well proven throughout the entire Trump presidency. Just time after time again, that those issues came up. It was just a bunch of nonsense. While I understand your hesitation to investigate a matter that may be related to an ongoing investigation, it is clear to me, based on numerous credible whistleblower disclosures, that the FBI cannot be trusted with the handling of Hunter Biden's laptop. And now what they're saying is that, well, we don't want to get into the laptop too much because we've got an ongoing tax investigation. So Hunter Biden's he's got that ongoing federal investigation. Yeah, where do you think that's going to, I think that goes nowhere. Well, it wasn't proper what he did, but it also wasn't illegal. I think that's what they'll come up with. So he suggested the Inspector General should begin by obtaining the history of the investigative actions taken by the FBI on Hunter Biden's laptop, which should be available on the FBI's case management system, Sentinel. So there should be timestamp on what happened there. And then we would know. But again, this to me was probably one of the most significant at this point in time and obvious examples of social media censoring a story. When the New York Post first reported on some of the contents of the laptop in October 2020, almost a full year after the FBI had it, allegedly. Much of the mainstream media and a group of more than 50 former senior intelligence officials dismissed the story as Russian disinfo. So they threw that story out there and people bought it. Or people are like, I don't know what to make of that. And that's what social media did. We don't really know what to make of this. Therefore, we're not going to really push it out. Can you imagine if this was anything to do with the Trump family? Oh, it would have been pushed out. You would have been given bonus points if you were a YouTuber or a podcaster talking about this. I mean, seriously. The New York Times has since authenticated key files from the laptop, as has the Washington Post. Yeah, we're going to need to do an editorial correction here. It is legit after all. And how about those 50 ridiculous senior intelligence officials who are retired? What did they say about it? Not much. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it would have fit the pattern of Russian disinfo. So, one infamous email purportedly detailed a business arrangement between a Chinese company and the Biden family. 10% for the big guy. We know that one, right? It's on email. It's in this laptop. You got 20 for H, 10 held for H for the big guy question. So obviously Hunter Biden, he's peddling some influence if you believe this information very clearly. I mean, it honestly couldn't be much clearer, could it? And that's why I think this is so crazy that we haven't had a full investigation into this. That we've just been like, nothing to see here. Don't worry about it, guys. Just keep on moving. Keep moving down that line and you just keep going. Don't worry about the laptop. Don't worry about those incriminating those photos. Got the FBI working on it. We don't want them to have another repeat of the 2016 election, do we? The reference to the big guy in the much publicized May 13th, 2017 email is in fact a reference to Joe Biden. Well, I mean, we want to say it is, but do we have any direct proof of that? We probably don't need to, do we? And this was said by Bobulinski, who says he was brought on as CEO of Sinohawk Holdings by Hunter Biden and 𝐏𝐞𝐸. You know, the interesting thing, the Hunter Biden is he's basically just brokering power. He doesn't really do anything. He kind of sits on some of these advisory boards, but what's he advising them on? I mean, like, what information could you get from Hunter Biden that you couldn't get elsewhere that is so important that you're going to stick him on the seat of your publicly held company or a bank or something? You're going to literally stick him on your board to, provide an additional opinion, whatever it is you need from that member. So you've got that's happening. And it's amazing how this whole thing went, right? The Republicans take back House, whatever, Senate. If and when they do that, Hunter Biden laptop's going to be one of those topics where I think it just gets a blowtorch of pressure put on it. You're just going to be looking at this issue hard. Maybe there's other issues that come up that are probably more pressing, but this to me was it was such a reference to, all right, yeah, we're going to do anything at any cost to win this election. And so I am sure from the top on down, there was, that laptop, that's not good. So we're going to put the kibosh on this. Don't talk about it. Don't let it get out there. Don't hyperlink the link. Don't allow the link to be shared. Don't, do that stuff. Don't worry. We got the laptop in the back here. We're the FBI. You can trust us. It kind of feels like that's what happened, right? That's what it feels like to me. And if you're left wondering, well, why didn't they investigate? Because I think the 2020 election could have been wildly different than the actual outcome. Because if people knew, the Bidens are just basically peddling influence. So we're going to put you on the board of this company and you're going to have a big desk at our corporate headquarters that says Biden, and, you know, you're going to be an honorary top dog member of our company. You're going to sit on our board for, you know, board meetings, and Hunter Biden is qualified for this. How? What exact job skill set does he have where foreign companies with big, huge, you know, organizations need him to sit on the board? I mean, the optics are just not good, right? It looks terrible. Is this whistleblower correct? Don't really know. But here's a little something from FBI response to Mark Zuckerberg claims in Joe Rogan show. I found that super interesting. Zuckerberg is just kind of talking about what the FBI told him. He didn't come right out and say they told us to censor the entire story. They just said, yeah, there's going to be some stories coming up that look a lot like Russian disinfo, and here's how they're structured. Boom, boom, boom. And then when Facebook sees these stories come out, they're like, aha, we know this one. Not going to fool us. We're going to censor this story. We're going to tighten the information down on this one, and we're not going to allow it to get released to the general public. That, to me, this whole deal, that feels correct. And, you know, maybe the FBI didn't know if it was legit or not. What they did know is that if they waited long enough and sat on the story, it would become no longer relevant. And that's kind of what happened. And especially during the actual election, this story should have been all over the headlines. And yet it wasn't. Cover up? We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. But are we actually going to be able to prove any of this stuff? Because even when I talk about, you know, my experience of what happened to me, you could say, well, that was just a crappy video, Sean. Nobody really wanted to watch that. Yeah, maybe. But on past topics where I've covered something like this, it's gone to the moon. Well, you know, not all videos are the same, which I get and I understand. But this storyline here, this should have been one where everybody was, you know, looking at page 3 going, oh, hey, don't show that newspaper to the kids. They're just not really going to understand. So a day after Mark Zuckerberg said that the Facebook limited a polarizing story ahead of the 2020 election because of an FBI warning, the FBI said it can only alert a private entity of a potential threat, not require it to take action. So the FBI was just like, hey, you know, there's a story that's going to come up and it looks a lot like this. And here's our take on it. This is what we're thinking. So now you've got a massive government entity basically just censoring big media. That's literally what happened with the Hunter Biden laptop story. Big media censored the storyline. They didn't allow it to get out. They didn't push it out. It just wasn't something that they wanted to promote because the optics are terrible and it probably doesn't help anything. So there's that. All right. So that's it for me on this one. It's kind of a quick update. This storyline's been going on for a long time, but now you got a whistleblower. Now you've got, you know, Mark Zuckerberg just kind of popping off on Joe Rogan podcast saying, well, they told us to, they're legit. So we listened. Yeah. I think an investigation into this laptop is necessary, and I would love to see that live streamed. I would live stream the live stream of the investigation, you know, the hearings. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. Talk then. Bye for now.